when talking shit in the octagon goes sideways and fighter gets knocked the fuck out. What happens when arrogance meets reality? When taunts, flashy dances, and over-the-top trash talk set the stage for absolute disaster. Trash talk is an art. It can break opponents before the fight even starts. But here's the brutal truth. If you can't back it up, it will come back to bite you in the ass. Just ask Joe Harding, who thought he could dance mid-fight, until a perfectly timed head kick left him crumpled on the canvas. Or Anderson Silva, who mocked Chris Weidman with his hands down, only to wake up staring at the lights and his legendary streak shattered. And it doesn't stop there. Ronda Rousey got brutally humiliated. Conor McGregor forced to tap. Sean Strickland knocked out cold. And the list goes on and on. Time and time again, the fight game has delivered ruthless lessons to those who let their ego outrun their skill. So, the question is, how bad does it get when fighters taunt the wrong opponent? Get ready, because these aren't just losses. These are brutal reminders that in combat sports, talking trash is easy, until you're the one picking your teeth off the floor. First, let's talk about Joe Harding versus Johan Segas. You are in an intense battle, everything's on the line, and instead of focusing, you decide to dance. That's exactly what Joe Harding did in his 2017 amateur featherweight bout against Johan Segas. Harding started showboating, clearly feeling himself as he danced mid-fight. But what happens when you lose focus? Segas saw his opening and capitalized, delivering a head kick that knocked Harding out cold, with no chance of recovery. Next, let's witness the fall of King in a fight between Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman. Anderson Silva was on top of the world. A 7-year undefeated streak, the UFC middleweight championship, and the arrogance to show it. But in his bout against Chris Weidman, Silva's infamous taunt of dropping his hands and pretending to be vulnerable proved fatal. Weidman, ever the opportunist, landed a left hook that sent Silva crashing to the canvas, breaking his undefeated streak and taking his title. In the blink of an eye, a show of superiority turned into one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. Let's rewind to UFC 6, 1995, where Tank Abbott's mockery of John Matua happens. Tank Abbott, known for his ruthless style and brash attitude, knocked out John Matua in a brutal 18 seconds, but Abbott didn't stop there. After Matua was knocked out, Abbott mocked his opponent's convulsions, turning a victory into a scene of cruelty. The crowd's reaction is not what Abbott was expecting. His taunting became the story, not just his victory, and it served as a harsh reminder of the fine line between confidence and disrespect. In a fight between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira, UFC 276, July 2, 2022, things get heat up. Sean Strickland is never shy about running his mouth, but ahead of his fight with Alex Pereira, he took it to another level. He mocked Pereira's striking, claiming he could outbox him with ease. Even during the fight, Strickland walked forward with his hands down, daring Pereira to engage. That turned out to be a fatal mistake. Pereira, a kickboxing beast, didn't just answer the taunts, he silenced them. One perfectly timed left hook landed flush, sending Strickland crashing to the canvas. The fight was over in the first round. Strickland's arrogance had cost him dearly, proving once again that when you underestimate a true knockout artist, you don't get a second chance. Well, David Haye came into his highly anticipated fight against Vladimir Klitschko with a mouth as big as his ego in July 2, 2011. The smack talk was off the charts, and Haye even wore a t-shirt featuring himself, holding the decapitated heads of both Klitschko brothers. It was trash talk at its most extreme. But here's the thing. Talk is cheap, especially when you can't back it up. At the Imtech Arena in Hamburg, Germany, Haye's bravado crumbled in the face of Klitschko's controlled and methodical boxing. Klitschko dominated the bout and won by unanimous decision, leaving Haye's credibility in shock. You know, Adrian Broner had an undefeated record and a brash persona that rubbed many the wrong way. On December 14, 2013, he was going into his fight against Marcos Maidana at the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas. Broner was full of trash talk. He taunted Maidana relentlessly, dismissing his opponent's skills with words that only added fuel to the fire. But once the bell rang, the fight didn't go as planned. Maidana dropped Broner twice during the bout, dominating every round. When the final bell rang, Maidana won by unanimous decision, and Broner's undefeated streak was over. Next, let's witness history. Ronda Rousey's rise to fame was insane, until she met Holly Holm at UFC 193 in Melbourne, Australia on November 15, 2015. Rousey, with her iconic judo throws and dominant attitude, led her to underestimate Holm. Rousey's trash talk and intense stare-downs only served to build the narrative that she couldn't be beaten. But when the fight started, it didn't go Rousey's way. Holmes' strategy was on point, and in the second round, she delivered a perfectly timed head kick that knocked Rousey out cold. The defeat was a shock to the MMA world, ending Rousey's undefeated streak and leading to a massive shift in her career. Let's see Conor McGregor when he entered UFC 196, with the swagger of a man who felt unstoppable on March 5, 2016. But when it came to Nate Diaz, McGregor's smack-talking was no match for Diaz's resilience. McGregor belittled Diaz relentlessly in the lead-up to their fight, but once the bout began, things went south. Diaz's calm and steady approach wore McGregor down, and in the second round, Diaz locked in a rear-naked choke that forced McGregor to tap out. The loss was a gut punch for McGregor's ego, who had never experienced that level of humiliation before. It was a moment that showcased Diaz's toughness. Next fight between Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa in UFC 253 on September 27, 2020 was another example of how the shit-talking can backfire quickly. Paulo Costa didn't just talk trash before his fight with Israel Adesanya. He made it personal. From mocking Adesanya's physique to flooding social media with memes, Costa was convinced he would bully his way to victory. But when the cage door shut, the difference in skill became painfully obvious. Adesanya put on a striking clinic, dismantling Costa with precision and ease. The Brazilian powerhouse, who had been so full of bravado, looked helpless. By the second round, Adesanya sealed the deal with a flawless TKO, leaving Costa in disbelief. The once loud Costa had no words left. Just the sting of defeat and the bitter reality that talk means nothing when your opponent is simply better. Well, Joanna Jędrzejczyk was the reigning UFC strawweight champion at UFC 217 on November 4, 2017, and she knew it. Her trash talk leading up to the fight with Rose Namajunas was harsh, belittling her opponent's skills and calling into question Namajunas' mental toughness. But Jędrzejczyk's attempts at psychological warfare did nothing but fire up Namajunas. When the fight began, Namajunas came out swinging, knocking Jędrzejczyk out in the first round and claiming the strawweight title. The victory stunned the MMA world and silenced critics who doubted Namajunas. Last but not the least, Chael Sonnen's trash talk leading up to his UFC 117 fight with Anderson Silva was nothing short of legendary on August 7, 2010. Sonnen didn't just talk about Silva's skills, he questioned his entire legacy and heritage. On fight night, Sonnen came out like a man on a mission, dominating most of the first 4 rounds. But in the 5th round, just when it seemed like Sonnen had Silva's number, Silva pulled off a miraculous triangle armbar submission. Sonnen, who had been trash-talking relentlessly, was forced to tap out. In the end, Sonnen's words were nothing more than noise in the face of Silva's skill and composure. In each of these instances, the taunting and trash talk backfired in spectacular fashion. These fighters learned that in the world of combat sports, you can't talk your way to victory, no matter how hard you try.